Hello, and welcome to another edition of Inside America's Minds. Today, I have with me fellow clinical psychologist, Dr. Holly Battey. Dr. Holly, thank you so much for the privilege of being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, I tell you, there has been a big demand, and I've had a lot of requests. We want to hear, we want to see a relationship expert, and you are it. You
Mm,
are the founder of Find Love at Last. You founded the company in 2014. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about it, how it happened, and so on.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it took me a really long time to find my soulmate. It was the thing that I most wanted in this life. And I'd been searching since I was 17. And I'd had some really wonderful men in my life, and I'd had some not so wonderful men in my life. And when I finally found my amazing husband and we created this amazing relationship, I just thought, um, I'm a clinical psychologist just like you. And if it took me this long to figure it out, the average person may never figure it out. And so I started this company to really expedite your path to love for conscious singles. And because the average person may never figure it out. We often think that people are lucky in love, and we
Yeah.
think that it's a byproduct of luck. And it's not, it's actually learned. And there's a proven path. And most don't know that. And so, ended up creating my masterclass, which is what I wished I would have known 10 years ago before finding my husband. And it's this comprehensive, proven path that worked for me as well as many, many of my clients to find love too. And not just, find your next boyfriend, but like find the partner of your dreams.
You know, what you said is so profound, and I have never heard it addressed this way, that finding your love is learned.
It's
It's
learning.
learned. And I have to agree with you 110% because there's so many levels to finding love, keeping love, and finding that fit.
Yes,
So
definitely.
I have to tell you, I am so impressed with you because as clinical psychologists, the training we receive, the education we go through is ongoing.
Yeah,
Originally, your career, you specialized with victims of crimes in adolescence.
right.
And I think that's incredible.
Mhm.
What was the bridge? How did you get from that area of specialization, which is incredible, just forensics within itself, then working with adolescents, wow,
Yeah.
to relationships and assisting people for most is finding that good fit. How did you get there?
Yeah, great question. I went straight through from kindergarten to doctorate and I didn't
Okay.
really take a break. And then I was working with trauma victims for a number of years.
Mm,
And it was really intense work. It was really
yes.
fulfilling work, but it was a lot. And so I had a bit of burnout. And so I took a step away and I had done executive search as I worked my way through graduate school, where I was pairing top talent with corporations and startups here in Silicon Valley. And so I just went back into that just because I needed a bit of a break. And so I did that for much longer than I ever anticipated. It was lucrative, but not that meaningful for me. And so I got laid off. And when I got laid off, I'm a multi passionate woman. And so I explored all of my passions, and none of them worked out. And I had one left. And it was secretly the thing I most wanted to do. And it's this.
And I can see it in you. I can see
Mm,
the passion. And I mean, okay, doctor of clinical psychology. You're in the Bay Area in California, right?
right. Yes.
Okay. You are a matchmaker, a dating expert, a speaker, author, coach, image consultant. You work remotely internationally, which I think is phenomenal. I got to add this because when I was reading about you and watching your podcast, you are a Christmas baby. Is that the name Holly? Is that where Holly came from?
Well, that would make a really good story. My mom said that I would have been Holly regardless, but
Uh,
yes, I am. That's a little known
wow.
fact about me. Yes.
Ironic, ironic.
And
And
ironically, my husband is actually born on Christmas Eve, and my
oh my
best friend
gosh.
is born on Christmas Eve the day before me. So it's a very busy, active time of year for us.
Wow. It's almost kismet, it would seem.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
know.
So the goal is you really wanted to help people expedite their path to love,
Yes.
make it less painful, less disappointing. And I find that very interesting because in your history professionally of working with trauma victims,
Mhm.
I think with my experience in private practice and just working in the hospitals that the most frequent trauma as human beings we experience are in relationships,
Mhm. Yes.
and the neural networks and that feeling part of the brain that's triggered with
Yes.
finding love and losing love. I
Mhm.
think we've all been there. And the trauma associated with your experience, I bet this adds a level to helping couples find love, individuals find love that a lot of other relationship experts don't have that experience, but you do. You know how the human brain works
Yes. And the human spirit.
and the human spirit.
Yeah.
Well
Um,
said. I have to take a sidebar here because I read that you had been to Africa twice.
yes.
So that is my special place where I go to climb and hike.
Oh, yes.
And I read that and I'm like, yeah, I already like this clinical psychologist for
Oh,
many reasons. Did you like Africa?
oh my God. I loved it. I loved
Incredible.
it. It set my hair on fire. I just,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
I went actually right after I got laid off.
oh, wow.
And I thought, if I don't do it now, I don't know if and when I ever will. And
Mm.
so, um, yeah, it changed my life. It was amazing.
I want to hear more about that. And I'm selfish with that. But
Yeah.
YouTube podcasts, you have done so many.
Mhm.
A few, Chris Scheller in May of 22, Don Brightman, Vince Kramer, Wendy Sterling, Kurt Powers. Um, in one of your podcasts, the podcast with Wendy Sterling, The Divorced Woman's Guide, and I believe this also applies to men, though, you said that one of the key elements in a relationship or finding that love is desire. Could you
Mhm.
tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. Yes. Well, it's really important that we search ourselves for what we most want in a partner, because we're meant to have what we desire in all
Mm,
parts of our life, not just love and relationships, but our careers, our lives outside of work. And so I think really like tapping into your heart to really search yourself for what you most want is it's important in all areas of life, but it's especially important with love because the quality of our relationships is the biggest determinant of the quality of our lives. And so we're
wow,
meant
that's
to have,
profound. You have to say that again. We deserve what we desire. And please repeat that about the quality of relationships.
yeah, the quality of our relationships is the biggest determinant of the quality of our lives.
Wow.
It was proven in a Harvard study.
Mm,
And I think, if we really think back in our experiences, I think that's really true. Like we're usually least happy when our relationships aren't doing well, and we're most happy when they are doing well. So, especially in this area, we tend to just let our love lives fly and we tend not to have much strategy around it or think that we even should. We think it's about luck when really it's really learned. And, I wish I could, have a hand in crafting curriculum in schools because if I did, if the quality of our lives is based on the quality of our relationships, we should have curriculum in schools about relationships and how to have
wow.
healthy ones. And we don't,
Yeah.
which is why I created the masterclass because it's just not out there. And most people don't know how to navigate relationships in a healthy way. And they don't know how to date in this modern world, how to
Mm.
navigate it and to get what they want out of it in an empowered way, because you really can date in an empowered way.
This is fascinating. And I know the audience, like me, is going to want to hear more about the workshop that you have, the master class in it.
Mm,
It makes total sense because, especially in our culture, it's very structured, the school system, and
yeah,
there's a curriculum and a syllabus as we go on. But
right.
why isn't there one early on for relationships? That's
Yeah.
a great point. So,
Thank you.
talk to me a little bit about imprinting because I'm of the belief that that first love, that first relationship that really, taps into our feeling brain, the limbic cortex, kind of establishes a template for better or worse. And
Mhm.
many times I think when relationships fail, it could be an unconscious uh, template that puts keeps putting us into choosing the same type of personality. But this is your field. Tell us more about that and what you think about that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if we don't have curriculum in schools that teach us how to navigate relationships, we're really learning from the people around us, right? And so our early childhood experiences are they influence us, of course. They're our first models for what relationships look like, for better or for worse. And so yeah, like if we're not conscious about that, we do tend to recreate those same patterns until we become conscious, or often it stems from pain, unfortunately, that we get
Hmm.
so hurt and we're suffering so much that it causes us to be more conscious about the choices that we make in the future. And so, yeah. So I think really paying attention to our lives in the present, but also looking at the past. And there's so much wisdom in our past. So many people want to kind of make the past and never look at it again. And while I don't think it's wise to necessarily live in the past, I think it's really important to take the lessons of the past so that they can inform us to make better choices in the future, especially when it comes to love.
Well said. First loves. Talk a little bit about that because I'm of the belief emotion has no chronological age. So, whatever we've experienced in the past can be triggered and we can re experience it in the present. And even anticipating what might happen in the future, I believe we can experience in the present. I think that sets us apart from the rest of, the animal kingdom consciousness, but also this incredible emotion. But first loves, they are there, are they not?
Hmm.
Forever?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I really believe that there are no failed relationships except
Okay.
when we don't take the lessons from them. And um, I just think there's so much that we can learn from our past that can be really rich, whether it was a healthy relationship or not. There's so many clues as to what worked for us and what didn't, because in any relationship, there's pieces that work and pieces that don't. And so I help my clients search their past for those
Mm,
things that clue them into what really works for them and what doesn't, so that we can pull forward what does
mm.
and eliminate the things that don't.
So are with your clients, are you identifying like patterns of behavior in relationships and love? Do you have them go back
I
to
do.
past? Could you tell us a little bit about that, Dr. Holly?
Yeah. So, with my private clients as well as my masterclass clients, we do a memory lane exercise.
Okay.
And so it's really helping them comb through their past for what has worked, what hasn't worked, what they learned. Um, there's just so much rich information there to cull to really inform what they need moving forward.
Mm.
And so that's a really, really important piece so that they don't repeat the same experiences and patterns again.
And
because
again,
there's
with
so
your
much power.
experience with trauma,
Yes,
I think it's phenomenal because you know exactly what to tap into and how to get through the other side of that moving forward successfully.
yes, yes.
Wow.
And the thing is that there's a lot of people walking around with a lot of emotional pain, you know? Um, and we're not intended to walk around with pain. The only purpose of the pain is to heal us and to grow us. And once we have that healing and that growth, the pain doesn't exist anymore. And we walk forward, having risen from that, more wise to make better choices in the future. That's all that the pain is there to do. And so if you have pain in your past, it just means that you
Mhm.
have another lesson to take from it. That's all. And as soon as you do, the pain dissipates and you move forward stronger and wiser.
So, and this is very profound what you're saying. So, let's talk about heartbreak,
Mm,
the grief involved, where the emotion takes over and there's, that despair, that sense of loss, depression, anxiety, fear of the unknown moving forward and never finding
mhm.
that good fit, that partner. How does one begin to work towards getting through or getting over a heartbreak? Because that there's so many. And
Yeah, well, I've certainly been there myself. Um, Certainly been devastated by love. Um, yeah, I've been in those dark places
yeah.
for sure. Um, After the last breakup that I had before meeting my husband, I spent about 8 months really working on myself, doing my inner work, healing, um, being creative, uh, writing poetry, like to really heal. Um, I think having really great support is really important in those times. Um, I know how it can be, though. It can feel really moment by moment if you're devastated, if you're broadsided, if your life is completely turned upside down.
Mm,
Um, that's where I think like really healthy daily practices can come into it, kind of faking it until you make it and doing those things that make you feel better, moving your body and the things that inspire you are really important to do at that time. I think journaling is really key. I know that was
mhm.
helpful for me, just putting my pain on the page. And rather than ruminating, a lot of people tend to ruminate and it just
Yeah. How
round
how
and
do they
round.
stop that rumination, those intrusive thoughts that just boom? See, you think you got it together, you think you're moving on, and wham,
Yeah,
it's like that emotional brain's like, yeah, no, we're not going there. You have to address this first. What
yeah,
what do you recommend about that?
yeah. I know. I used to be a morning ruminator, and
Hi. I love that. A morning ruminator. Can you
yeah.
define rumination for our audience?
Oh gosh, I think it's the monkey mind kind of
Okay.
focusing on the negative and just going around and around, or any problems that you might have, or
Yeah.
problems that could happen, things that maybe don't even exist but could happen. The mind is so
Yeah, I
interesting.
call it spinning, and
Yeah,
it's that anxiety that just overwhelms in the morning, and as soon as you get in bed at night, you're like, "Bing, okay, now every worry in the world," right? That
yes,
kind of
definitely.
phenomena.
Yes.
So, what do you suggest for people to stop that rumination or that spinning and those thoughts from coming in as they're trying to get through the end of a relationship?
I think journaling is really helpful for that.
Okay.
Just putting on the page your pain, your thoughts, stream of consciousness, not, something that's beautifully written that you hope others will read. No, just stream of consciousness, like a dump of
Okay.
wherever you are, because when we ruminate, we do spin and we spin around and around and around, and we can spin on the same thing over and over. When we journal, we tend not to do that. It's
Okay.
the journaling leaves you in a very different place than when you started.
What do
And
you think it is between the brain and writing? Can they type as well, or I
I did, yeah,
okay.
I
And
do.
it
And
was
I do
still as helpful as writing because there's something that goes on in that process, right?
Yeah, there is.
with writing things out or typing things out.
It's funny because even though I don't quite know what the mechanism is, but when we write, you don't write the same thing over and over, whereas you ruminate about the same thing over and over.
Mm,
So it often doesn't leave you in the same place as where you started. And I don't know, it activates a different part of us that,
yeah.
um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think it's the way we were evolutionary designed to learn was bottom up, applied, hands-on.
yeah,
And I know there have been some studies, and this was years ago, so I don't even know if what I'm stating is up to date, but individuals that lose the loss of their hands, for example, their signature, if they write with their toes or a pen in their mouth, is very recognizable as their own, unique to them,
mhm,
because it's such a brain body phenomena. But I would imagine that there's something similar in journaling, or also in, just like you said, poetry,
mhm,
art,
yeah.
music,
Expressing that
um,
pain is so important.
dynamic.
Yeah. The most important thing I think is to go through it, is to go
Okay,
through the
to go
feelings
through
as
it.
opposed to distracting yourself from them, using substances. You
Okay.
know, it's so important to go through it, and it's certainly not fun. It's not. But
No,
getting to the other side and healing yourself so that you are ready for a greater love than you've ever had before, I will tell you, it is totally worth it. And this is from a woman who had been, devastated multiple times at the end of relationships. And
hard to
so,
believe, you know?
yeah, it
Yeah,
happens to all of us. Nobody's immune.
right. I
Yeah,
would agree with that 110%. None of us.
no. And
So,
also,
go
just
ahead.
getting, having support, to help you get through those difficult times
Mhm.
for women and men. I know men often don't seek the help that they need because we give them the messages that they need to figure it out on their own. I have a lot of male clients that I work with that I love. And, just it's hard for them to even ask for the support that they
Yeah,
need. But it's actually a strength. It's a strength to ask for what you need. And it's so
I
much easier
agree.
when you have someone in your corner and who can help you through the process. I have a private client I'm working with right now, and he just got really overwhelmed with this whole process. And I said, I know the process. I know the steps. You just do your homework. That's it, and we'll get you there. So I think having someone else that knows what the process
Mhm.
is, where you can just show up and do the homework, and has a proven path, I think can really, really help and shortcut your path.
And I think, again, the curriculum, having an action plan,
Yes.
having a treatment plan, what you and I would call in private practice, so to say, having a very structured way of proceeding will also kind of compartmentalize the emotion, so that thinking part of our brain can say, okay, this may be what I'm feeling, but this is the fact. This is the thinking part. This is what I need to do to get to the next level.
Yeah.
And then feeling and thought consolidate. Is
Yeah.
that correct?
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely.
So, heartache at any age. Can we fall in love at any age?
Heck yes.
Tell us more.
Heck yes. Yeah, I have a wonderful story about that actually. That's personal. And so, yeah, I mean, first off, you can find as long as you have a heartbeat, you can find love.
Say that again, Dr. Holly. That is so profound.
As long as you have a heartbeat, you can find love.
I love it. At any age. I love
Any
it.
age, any age. So, and I have a story to kind of show that. Gosh, many months ago, I was speaking with a woman who it was on our initial consult call, and she said, I don't know, I just think I'm too old for love. And her voice did not sound that old. And so I had to ask, well, gosh, how old are you? Not that it matters, right? Because I really do believe that you can find love at any age. But I was just curious because she sounded so young. And she was early 40s. And she felt like she'd missed the boat. And I assured her that she hadn't missed the boat. That same very week, I heard from my stepmother, and my father has since passed, and she is
Mm.
in an assisted living facility. And she called to tell me that she's getting married again.
How old is your stepmother?
She is 86.
God love her. And I got to tell you, I'm going to stop here and just say that the feeling of falling in love, the feeling of finding that person, when I talk with my sage, my older clients, that feeling is the same as when they were 16. So
Oh,
I think people need to be aware of that. That feeling, those neurochemicals, that visceral response does
oh yeah,
not change with age.
no,
Go ahead. Wow. This is
yeah.
great.
So she's going to be a bride, at
Yeah.
86.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
So there's no reason that, I mean, love isn't a function of age, it's not. It's a function of our heart. And
Wow.
yeah. So, a lot of people ask me, like, gosh, am I too old? Am I too this? Am I matchable? I get a lot of these questions. It's all a matter of mindset. That's it. And so, in the work that I do with clients, we look at their limiting beliefs, the beliefs that they have about, with my female clients, men, um, relationships, what they can or cannot have, what they're worthy of. All of this comes into play because there's so many components to finding your soulmate, right? Really is a spiritual journey.
Mm.
And there's a lot of potential rabbit holes that people can fall down. And um, and often they don't know what they're not doing right. And so that's why, having someone who has been there and has shown a lot of other people the proven path that has worked, I think can really mitigate the time that it can take, as well as navigating more pain and suffering along the way, can be really helpful.
And that's what you said originally, or that's what's written too, is that you want to help. You actually help people expedite their path to love.
Yes.
So, with that, what do you find in your experience is the number one obstacle
Mhm.
preventing people from finding love?
Yeah. Um, Mindset is really huge
Okay.
because I tell clients, we can do everything else right, but if your mindset isn't aligned to what you ultimately want, you're going to sabotage it. So, having
Mm.
that mindset that is aligned to what you want is really important to manifest it. And the second thing is clarity. Um, there are so many people who come to me who aren't clear about who their ideal partner
Mm.
is. And
Wow.
if we don't know what we're looking for, we're likely not going to find it. And,
So true.
we often know what we want, but we often don't know what we need. And it's a huge difference
Mm.
because a lot of married women end up marrying men they never anticipated marrying, like never would have
Interesting.
thought. And yet they're happier than they've ever been. And so we really have to look at that as, happier than they've ever been, which means their needs are getting met. But we're often wanting something very different from what we need. And so we work together on that piece too. Of
And that works for men as well as women,
course. Oh,
right?
yes, for sure.
And you said manifesting. So
Mm.
we have to visualize it. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, the visualization part is so key because
Okay.
we tend to, our thoughts are so powerful
Yeah.
and what we focus on grows, right? So that's all part of mindset and the
Whoops.
importance of it. But yeah, what we focus on grows. So we need to be really clear about what we're looking for, and visualize it even to manifest ultimately what we want. We have to believe it's possible.
We have to believe it's possible. What has been the strangest client or clients that you've ever had?
Oh gosh. Well, I had I had a client who, I'm a big Sex and the City fan. I don't know if you've seen the show, but
I have.
yeah,
Yes.
okay. So they had a man on the show that they called the modelizer, and so he would only date women that were models, basically.
Okay.
And so I had a client who was kind of like that, but she was actually a woman.
Okay. So she was looking for the male model,
Yes,
the
yes,
eye candy, as they
right.
would call it.
Yes. And she had gotten a little bit older, but she was still looking for the same type of man as in her 20s.
Ah.
It was just, it was very difficult. Yeah. Because she was so, here's another mistake that people make in looking for love is that they overvalue looks and they
Mm.
undervalue character.
What if there is no physical attraction at the onset, though?
That happens. That
Okay.
happens. But what most people don't know is that that can grow.
Talk
And
to us
so,
more about that, because I always get that. They're like, well, but this and this. And I'm like, okay, so they're not your fantasy in your head, but yet you can't stop seeing them. What's going on
right.
with that? What's the
Yeah,
attraction? What's the pull? There might be something else.
right. Well, I mean, here's an example, a personal example. I knew my husband for years before we ever really got together romantically.
Wow.
Years. I didn't know he was going to be my husband. I had no idea that I already knew my soulmate. No
Hmm.
idea. And I'm a pretty conscious person.
What changed? When did it dawn on you that, oh my gosh, I love this man?
Mhm. Yeah, well, we mostly weren't single at the same time. We were both serial monogamous. And so we're in relationships with other people. And we would see each other every couple of years or something, grab a coffee here and there. And whenever a relationship would end for me and I had an extra concert ticket, I would, invite him and he'd come and we'd get together and then call him up in another 2 years. And so, yeah, I mean, we were finally just single at the same time and finally figured it out. But a lot
Wow.
of people don't know. And so they don't know what to look for. One of the biggest mistakes people make is that they decide too soon. I mean, we have this blessing and a curse called online dating, right? Where we
Mm.
have access to more matches than anyone could ever date. And so it's wonderful in that we meet people we would never otherwise meet. And yet people get overwhelmed by too much choice,
Yeah, I hear that
especially
a
if we're
lot.
not,
Yeah.
yeah, especially if we're not clear on what we're looking for,
Mm.
right? So what do people do? They go on a date and they think, well, there's hundreds of people behind this man or woman. And so if I'm not feeling it within the first 10 minutes, like must not be it. And so that is a mistake. It's not to say that it doesn't need to be baseline attraction, but attraction can certainly grow over time. And so I think I highly recommend to all of your listeners going on 3 to 5 dates with one person if there's baseline attraction there and you have shared values.
So a lot of and I think that's excellent advice, because I hear that all the time. And I'm like, this is, you got to give it more than once. Try second. And then the other thing is, I tell my clients, monitor yourself. What are you feeling? What are the triggers? What are the triggers that work well, and what are the ones that turn you off or that cause anxiety? But a lot of the relationships today are also long distance. So how does one nurture those?
Mm, gosh, well, I've been in long distance relationships myself. You got to be a really good communicator. You both
Okay.
have to be really committed to it. It's far easier to navigate a long distance relationship if you've been in the same place first and built that foundation, and then one partner goes elsewhere, as
Okay.
opposed to starting in different locations and trying to build that foundation. Um, yeah, consistency, seeing each other regularly is important.
And communication, like you said, I think is key. And we know the differences between genders and semantics and so on. And I think a lot of times explaining or defining words that we use with each other in relationships is very important. Would you agree?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. There's a lot of people, we talk about the importance of communication, but so often, especially women, aren't honest in their
Really?
communication.
Okay,
Yeah.
tell us more about that.
Yeah. Well, I think that in order for communication to be really effective, we have to be honest, but we also have to be kind. And so too often women are socialized to be polite, but not honest. And
Interesting.
I think that you can do both. And I
Okay.
think it's important that we do, because if
Hmm.
we're being polite without being honest, it's actually a disservice to our relationship.
Wow. And what do you see in men in
Men
relationships?
who are good men really want to know what women want, because how are they going to hit the target otherwise? But we often
Wow.
don't tell them. We
Wow.
often don't tell them. We don't give them the path to our heart.
Why
And
do
then
you
we
think
wonder
that
why it doesn't
is?
work out, because we're socialized to be polite above all else
Okay.
as girls,
Okay.
right? And then we
Okay.
grow into women who do the same thing. And we go home, we call our girlfriend, we tell her the honest truth, and then we're polite, right? I mean, isn't that what we do? I had a wonderful time. I will see you next time. And then you get in the car and you call your girlfriend and you tell her how the date really went down,
Yeah.
right? I'm not endorsing 100% disclosure off the bat,
Yeah, I
but
hear you.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's context. But yeah.
What is the hardest thing about being you as a clinical psychologist and relationship expert?
Mm, wow. I don't think I've ever been asked that before. Hardest thing. Um, Maybe like as a business owner, just having to be good at everything, you know?
Mm,
Um, there's parts I don't love doing. And so as I've progressed in this business, I just outsource those parts. Um, so yeah, and that's a lovely thing to be able to show up um, and be me and outsource the parts that I don't love.
your best day ever, the best day in the history of your life, Dr. Holly.
Mm, gosh, probably my wedding day and my honeymoon. I mean, yeah, amazing.
Well, like you said, since the age of 17, what you wanted was to find that love, that fit for you.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
that's what you do to help others get there.
Yeah.
The most challenging day in your life.
Oh gosh. Um, Losing love,
Mm,
having a significant relationship end,
yeah.
devastating. Yeah.
Rocks the
So,
world up and down and left and right, right?
oh, completely. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not sure how you're going to get from moment to moment. But having had those difficult days just
Mm,
made my best day that much more wonderful.
yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us about your master class. And also, I wanted to mention, let's see, the Owl Tale podcast, that you have 12 podcasts out there with the Owl Tale. Is that correct?
Do I? I
Yeah,
don't know.
that's what I found. Dr. Holly, and it was, let's see, one of this was postcards in the to the universe with Melissa
Oh,
Caprio.
yeah. Yes.
Yeah, great stuff. But
Yeah.
tell us how the audience can hear more of you, see more of you, attend a workshop, your books, all of that. Tell us.
Okay. Yes. So you can go to my website, my company's name, findloveatlast.com.
Okay.
Um, I have my master class. It's 90-day program, my signature program that takes you from single to soulmate, learning
Wow.
to become the one so you can attract the one. Because one of the things that I think is most important in finding love, if we want to manifest a love greater than we've ever had before, it takes preparation. And most people don't know that. And so the master class helps you prepare for the greatest love that you'll ever have.
And that's 90 days, you
It's
said?
90 days. Yeah.
Great.
90 days.
Great. Wow.
So you can go to myloveatlast.com to learn more about that. I do have an upcoming workshop. It is August 27th, Saturday from 10 to 1 Pacific time. It's called Finding Your Mr. Right.
Finding your Mr. Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And in those 3 hours, we are going to clarify who your ideal partner is. And I'm actually tossing in my VIP matchmaking worksheets, and we will know by the end of that workshop, like your ideal partner profile, who you should be dating versus who you shouldn't. And maybe we could include in the show notes like a link to that workshop would be great.
Okay,
Yeah. And then also
definitely.
on Facebook, I have a Facebook group called Conscious Singles from Single to Soulmate. You can also find me on Instagram at Dr. Holly Battey and LinkedIn. I'm all over the place. So, yeah.
What message would you like to leave the audience with?
Mm. That the love of your dreams is meant for you.
The love of your dreams is meant for you. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Holly Battey, incredible.
Mm.
Find love at last. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jody. It was such a pleasure being with you.
A privilege, and I know so many people are going to benefit from this. And I'm sure you and I will meet again.
I would love that. I would love that. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.